Will Howard solidifies legendary status with Ohio State's national championship win.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Thursday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. During today's show, we'll dive into an exclusive group that Will Howard recently joined, as well as look at his abnormal path to winning the national championship. But before we get to any of that, Will Howard solidifies legendary status with Ohio State's national championship win. That's not just legendary status. Will Howard is a Buckeye legend. And I'm not normally a person that in the moment says, oh, you're a legend or that guy's a legend. But what Will Howard did this year and the fact that he propelled a massive turnaround after that Michigan loss the way that he did, he is a Buckeye legend. I can say it in the moment, and I have no problem making that statement at the top of today's show. Will Howard bought into Ohio State. Will Howard chose Ohio State to do two things: raise his draft stock and to win a national championship. And during his last year in college football, he accomplished both of those goals. Trust me, Will Howard probably would have been a 6th or 7th round pick if he came out and entered the NFL draft after last season. Heading into right now at the end of January, a few months away from the upcoming NFL draft, I wouldn't be shocked if Will Howard was a 2nd round pick in the NFL draft based off the way that he played this year. Now, could he be a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick? Absolutely. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was a 2nd round pick because of the way he played and the way that some NFL people will view him as an NFL prospect. Will Howard came in. Will Howard bought in. Will Howard said, Ryan Day, what do you need from me? Hey, I got some goals I want to accomplish, but what do you need from me for the team? And he knew that if he bought into the team, he would accomplish his goals. He would have a realistic opportunity to accomplish at least one of the goals. That winning the national championship, that's really tricky. That's really hard. And we saw a gauntlet that Ohio State went through this year. We saw how difficult it was for them. So winning the national championship is hard in any given year. But in the first year of a 12-team playoff, when you truly don't know what's going to happen or what to expect or how your body's going to respond or the strength and conditioning program at Ohio State, they're learning on the fly, just like the players and the coaches are. There are so many unknowns. There were some unknowns with Will Howard. What kind of player would he be? What kind of thrower would he be of the football? Got the job done, man. I mean, when I think about a Buckeye legend in the moment, and I make that bold claim about a certain player, I think about what he did in the Scarlet and Gray. Only 1 year in that uniform, and which is as odd as it is when you look at him, when you see him at Raising Cane's a couple of days after winning the Natty, him and Jack Sawyer having a good old time there. He feels like a guy that was Jack Sawyer's neighbor. Jack's an Ohio kid. He's a Columbus, Ohio kid. It seems like Will Howard is not the kid that was from Pennsylvania, but he's a kid from Ohio that realized in his last year he would have to do something special so that he would be remembered in a huge way. And he made that thing happen. Now, there are some Buckeye legends that don't win national championships. Orlando Pace, Eddie George. Those are just a couple of examples. Now, they didn't win national awards, but they did win a national championship. There wasn't even a national championship game when they played there in the shoe. So those guys are Buckeye legends. Ryan Shazier, Buckeye legend. I don't believe he was on that 2014 team, but he is a Buckeye legend. So you can be a Buckeye legend and not be a guy that wins a national championship. But when you do what Will Howard did while leading the Buckeyes offense by buying in, expressing himself in the way that he did, and you win like he did, oh yeah, I have no problem in the moment right now, if you'd attach to the national championship win, calling Will Howard a Buckeye legend. And for decades and decades and decades, one, you have to look at this team and say, well, they're the first team to win a 12-team the national championship in a 12-team playoff format. That's insane. That's absolutely insane to think about. But also when you're 20 or 30 or 40 years down the road and you look back at this 2024 team, what do you have to say? Will Howard is a Buckeye legend. He earned legendary status during this year. And that's something that even a couple days after that win, I am celebrating like crazy internally. I really I'm not one to like brag. And my boss said that where I cover local sports here in Kokomo, Indiana, my boss is a Michigan fan. And after Michigan won the Natty, I'll tell you what he did, kind of annoyed me. He brought a bottle of wine, a commemorative bottle of wine from that was, I believe, made by a Michigan fan. So like you got Michigan nonsense written all over it. And he brought that into the office and they were like, "You want to touch it?" I said, "No, absolutely not. That it makes me sick. I just don't want to think about it." So I'm not really like the guy that's going to gloat, or anything like that, or even like I might wear a hat when the national championship hat comes in. I'll wear that, but I'm not like a gloating guy. So a few days after the win, I am still very, very happy, and a celebratory mood is filling me every single day. But I've gained a lot more appreciation for Will Howard after that game on Monday. Was it his finest game of his career? No. Were the numbers sexy? No. But what did Will Howard do? The same thing he's done all season long. Manage the game the way it needs to be managed and put Ohio State in the right position to have a chance to win the game, and not just have a chance to win the game. You did that thing in a way where that game should have been a blowout. There is no reason why that final score should have been what it was. Absolutely. Now, was it 34-23, an 11-point win? Yes, cover the spread, all that good stuff. But Ohio State should have blown the doors off Notre Dame. I said the same thing after the Texas game. There was no reason why that game should have been that close. Ohio State should have beat the brakes off Texas. They should have beat the brakes off Notre Dame. But what happened? Penalty here, penalty there, penalty here, penalty there. Teams start coming back. Oh, Riley Leonard's hitting some guys the same way Quinn Ewers was hitting some hitting running backs out of the backfield. Next thing you know, that margin gets shorter and shorter and shorter. Will Howard didn't fold. Will Howard didn't back down. He didn't become a coward. No, Will Howard said, "Okay, cool. What do we have to do to secure this win?" And he did just that. In 20 years and 30 years and 40 years down the road, when I look back at this season, think about number 18. Also, number 33. Going to look at Jack Sawyer and some other players on tomorrow's show. We'll look at number 18. Think about the memories of this season. Think about what he did. Think about the buy-in. Think about in the big moments, in the big games, what did he do? He rose to the occasion and he got the job done. Yes, I have no problem. I don't think you do either, saying that Will Howard is a Buckeye legend in the moment. It's not prisoner of the moment. It's not hyperbole. It's the reality. He is a Buckeye legend and forever and ever. And the same way old boy said earlier on Sandlot, I should have said it when I first said forever because it would have had a whole lot more impact when I said it. Will Howard is a guy that we can look at and say he came in, he bought in, he got the job done, he rose to the occasion, he made himself a better quarterback right before our very eyes. And at the end of the day, he's lifting up the national championship trophy and celebrating with his brothers because of him. Not just him individually, the entire team. But one of the biggest reasons the Buckeyes had an opportunity to be in the national championship is because of number 18 and the way he plays the football out there on Saturdays. Now, you got to say Monday, you got to say Wednesday, you got to say Friday, whatever day of the week it is. Will Howard shows up, he shows out, and he gets the job done. He got the job done this year. He won the Natty. And my man, Will Howard is a Buckeye legend. Not only is Will Howard a Buckeye legend, but he had an abnormal path to win the national championship, and that's something that I think all of us should appreciate. This episode is brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code SPACE80. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Now, some of you right now are looking at Jay on the YouTube and wondering, man, where your glasses at? Why are you going with no spectacles on a Thursday? Well, they're right here next to me. I was planning on going without them. I was planning on wearing them, honestly. Then all of a sudden, I said, "Oh no. The glare on the glare and where I am in the living room right now, it's just shining." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that to the viewer. I am going to do something different." And I'm going to go with no glasses today. We might get this approach more often throughout the show, but this is what we're going with today. And I say all that because Will Howard, in his journey to Columbus, it was like me not wearing glasses on a show. It's a little weird. And his path to Columbus was weird as well. But that path helped him be the quarterback he was at Ohio State. And it goes back to when he first got to Kansas State. 2020, the COVID year. He played 9 games. 2021, 2022, he played 6 games his sophomore year. He played 7 games his junior year. And you're sitting here thinking like, oh, Will Howard, did he really struggle to get on the field? He never won the job. Like, I was looking at this recently, looking back at some of his history. Adrian Martinez, I believe the former Nebraska quarterback, transferred to Kansas State his last year at college football, won the job over Will Howard. And I remember Adrian Martinez won the job, but I didn't know that Will Howard was a quarterback or that he would be a guy that would eventually be a Big 12, win a Big 12 championship game. I had no idea, but I did realize, to me, Adrian Martinez wasn't that good. So if Adrian Martinez won the job over Will Howard, that means Will Howard wasn't that good either. Now, you look back more at some of the numbers. I believe in his final year at Kansas State, played 12 games. His completion percentage was his highest of his Wildcat career of 61.3. He threw 24 touchdowns. He had 10 interceptions. He had some rushing yards in there too. In that year, 226 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns. So his numbers are okay, a little better on the ground, but throwing the ball, he wasn't all that. So I was seriously looking back at some of the thoughts I had in the preseason and thinking back to his decision to come to Ohio State. Ryan Day saw something that Lincoln Riley saw, that Mario Cristobal saw. Most people like me that do this stuff on a regular basis didn't see what the coaches saw. Absolutely not. Because Will Howard's 3 places to go after leaving Kansas State when he decided to not go to the NFL, it was Miami, Ohio State, and USC. Now, some of you might be saying, Jay, was that NIL involved in that? Probably. Probably. It's weird that anytime I think of Miami going to get somebody from the portal, they're trying to just throw money to get the guys instead of making sure it's a great fit. I have no idea. Recently heard some things that were unfortunate about a booster down in Miami. Don't know who it. I forget his name. He was actually someone that helped someone from my former high school get down there, transfer from Kansas State actually down to Coral Gables to play basketball there. It'd be a hurricane, but I think money would have been involved. But if Will Howard went to Miami, he wouldn't have been this quarterback. I don't believe that at all. If Will Howard went to USC, I think he would have been a better quarterback than he was at Kansas State. He would have had some wild weapons to work with out there in Southern California, but he wouldn't have had a chance to win a national championship. And if that was the final decision, the final reason he chose Ohio State, great, it worked out for you. But also there's the development that he needed. And I think Lincoln Riley would have helped develop him. I know Ryan Day would. If I'm a quarterback, I am not going down to Miami to get developed. Cam Ward already had a lot of talent. Cam Ward wasn't trash. Cam Ward had a lot of talent. Cam Ward got down there with some of them elite players that Miami had and was very, very successful. Good for you. Got the job done. But Will Howard coming to Ohio State, he realized the cupboard wasn't bare. He realized he was going to be throwing a future first-round pick and a future first-round pick and a guy who was a freshman that was on a running to win the Biletnikoff. He was throwing to some dudes, throwing Travion Henderson and the Quinshon Judkins on the backfield. He was throwing to some guys that are going to get the job done. They're going to be great players for Ohio State, and they knew what it takes to be a Buckeye. And so he realized the caliber of player he's throwing to is different. But still, in the back of his mind, I'm thinking, in my mind, he's going to Ohio State. And every year he was there at Kansas State, he struggled to win the job. And if he stayed at Kansas State this year, he wasn't going to win the job because Avery Johnson was going to be QB1. So if a man that was struggling to get the job all of a sudden is going to come to Ohio State and win the job, now, you're not going up against guys that were really experienced. Adrian Martinez played a lot of ball before getting there to Kansas State. Devin Brown hadn't played that much. Julian Sand just got on campus. Lincoln Kienholz, just 1 year in Columbus. Aaron Nolan just got on campus. So he really wasn't going up against the same competition that he was going up against at Kansas State as far as with the quarterback competition, but that path was still weird. Struggled to win the job there at Kansas State. His mechanics weren't the best. He wasn't an accurate passer. He was more of a runner, a big body running quarterback than the type of passer that Ryan Day wants to lead his offense. And the next thing you know, Ryan Day says, no, I want you. I want you. Yeah, maybe he wanted Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard had a no contact as soon as he entered the portal. And based off some of the things we saw from Riley Leonard this year, he would have not been the right quarterback for Ohio State this year. Will Howard is. And Will Howard realized his path to Ohio State was a little rocky, a little bumpy, had some hiccups along the way. His path, even to get the national championship, to get the starting job, had some hiccups, got some bumps, had to get coached hard by Ryan Day. And Will Howard's on the record talking about during spring practice when he would do a 3-step drop and a couple hitches, all of a sudden he did that. Ryan Day said, oh, what are you doing? Will Howard said, this is how we did it at Kansas State. Not in a braggadocious way, but just saying like, hey, this is how we did it over there at Kansas State. Ryan Day said, if you do that here, you're not going to hit your receivers. These guys are too good. It's not word for word. That's just a conversation. Next thing you know, Will Howard's mechanics, baby, got better. His thought process, his processing got quicker. His ability to figure out stuff pre-snap. If stuff changed post-snap, he instantly could see that change and move forward. Everything about Will Howard as a quarterback got better. He also realized he wouldn't be running the ball as much as he did at Kansas State. Didn't shy away from it. In the Natty, ran that thing 16 times because Ryan Day said lead no doubt. And that was part of the plan to make sure that Ohio State left no doubt. Will Howard's path to Ohio State was a rocky one. It was a little shaky one. But even though it was rocky, even though it was shaky, even though it wasn't as stable as other paths when people hit the transfer portal, one thing we know about Will Howard, he was ready to get the job done. He was ready to be developed. He was ready to be coached hard, and he was ready to push Ohio State and propel them to win a national championship, and that's exactly what he did. While winning the national championship, Will Howard joined 2 exclusive groups. One of them is inside the Ohio State football program, and the other is outside of it. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. The energy, the excitement, and the connection with other fans are unmatched. I remember the thrill of seeing my favorite team clinch a playoff win live. It's a memory I'll never forget. This year, Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff to show you and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, being there. I used Game Time Picks to grab tickets for an upcoming playoff game, and it couldn't have been easier. I found a super deal that gave me incredible value for amazing seats, and I could even preview the view from my spot before buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. So not only is Will Howard a Buckeye legend and he had a rocky path to get to Columbus to ultimately win the national championship, but while winning the national championship, Will Howard joined two exclusive groups. One of them is inside Ohio State's football program. The other is outside. Let's go outside first before coming back inside the program to wrap up today's show. Will Howard is one of two transfer quarterbacks to win a national championship in their first year at their new school. First, many of you are thinking about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow won the Natty at LSU in year 2. Him and Cameron Newton are the only two quarterbacks to be transfers that won the Natty in their first year at that new school. Well, Cam Newton is a guy that, unlike Will Howard, Cam Newton transferred twice. He left Florida, went to a JUCO, left the JUCO, came to Auburn, and we all saw that Cam back. We all saw Auburn beat Oregon in the national championship. We all remember what Cameron Newton was as a football player, and it was fun to watch, man. It was so much fun to watch Cam Newton play football. Different style of quarterback, about just as tall, a little bit heavier, sturdier frame, a very strong human being. And Cameron Newton was fun. But Will Howard was more fun. Anytime you get a guy like this and a Scalding grad to do something like this right before our very eyes, it makes what he did feel even more special. Because Will Howard could have come in, been a cancer, said, no, I am doing things my way. I know how things are at Ohio State. I understand that Ohio State has been more successful, but I am doing things my way. That would have been dumb. Absolutely stupid. And I'm trying to do my best right now to not come in and rip people or throw any hypothetical storylines out there just to make something to talk about. I'm trying not to. But in the course of this show, there are going to be some things that may be thoughts in my head that come out. That would have been very, very odd of Will Howard and crazy for him to come in if he did and say, no, I'm doing things my way. I am QB1. You have to fall in line with me. I don't fall in line with you. You have to fall in line with me. Well, one, I don't think Ryan Day would have allowed things to get that far because I think during his vetting process and making sure that he is a right culture guy, he would have figured that out. I think Ryan Day is very, very smart. He can sense, hey, you're not the right kind of guy for our culture. So we're going to push you back and let you go a little bit to the right or to the left, but you're not going straight forward with us because, baby, you don't fit this culture. Will Howard did. When I think about him winning a natty his first year at a new school, I don't care if he transferred after his first year in college football or his fourth year in college football. The fact that you come in and do that in this era when it's harder than ever to win the national championship, that is something we can't gloss over. I mean, we think about what Ohio State did in 2014 just to get to the playoff. Then in the playoff, you beat Alabama and you beat Oregon. Think about that. That's a phenomenal run. Think about 02. Think about 06. Think about 07. Think about all of these things. The fact that it took a whole lot for you to even be 1 or 2 in the BCS to get to the national championship, that's an exclusive group. Think about what it took for Ohio State to get to the playoff, and then all of a sudden, you still had to play and win those games and play harder competition in back-to-back weeks than ever. And all of a sudden, right now, Ohio State unfortunately doesn't play in the Big Ten championship game, but they have to run through a crazy gauntlet. Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame back to back to back to back weeks. you probably wouldn't expect a transfer quarterback in his first year at the new school to get the job done. The odds are against you. We also haven't seen this before. So not only is it new, not only is this path abnormal and crazy, we've never seen this. So there's nothing for him to say, oh, he did it, I can do it too. No. You're the first. You're the guinea pig. You got to come out here and say, oh, whatever the challenge is, I can get it done. And he did. He got that thing done. So not only is he one of two transfer quarterbacks to win the Natty in their first year at their new school, he's also one of three Ohio State quarterbacks to win a national championship in the BCS/CFP era. And I'm going back with that group because one, I wasn't watching football. I don't think I was even alive at that time when those previous coaches, Woody Hayes and I forget the other coach, forgive me, won the national championship there. But that's also the championship game era. So there have only been three Ohio State quarterbacks that have played in the era, that have won a national championship in an era with a championship game. Craig Krenzel, Cardale Jones, and Will Howard. The thing about Cardale Jones is, even on that roster, if everybody were healthy, he was still QB3. He wasn't better than JT Barrett. He wasn't better than Braxton Miller as a quarterback. And so when I think about that, like, man, you're in a wild group. One of three Buckeye quarterbacks to win a national championship in the BCS or CFP era. I mean, the introduction of the BCS was so abnormal for college football that you're going to tell us all of a sudden you're going to have a championship game? Yes, something that should have happened decades ago all of a sudden was thrust into the forefront for college football fans in the 1998 season. And Will Howard's been able to see a lot of great football and see what it takes and hear some stories about guys that won the national championship, but all of a sudden it's for him. He's in that group. As I'm thinking about those three quarterbacks, Cardale Jones, Will Howard, and Craig Krenzel, I'm trying to rank them as far as who is the best among those three. Will Howard's number one. This section I went back and forth with. I want to go Craig Krenzel 2 and Cardale Jones 3 because Cardale Jones never won the job. I know the era was different. I know the style of play was different, so I understand all of that. Cardale Jones never was consistently the starter at Ohio State. I understand Craig Krenzel's limitations, but Craig Krenzel was a phenomenal leader. He was more of a Will Howard type of player, Will Howard type of leader. I got to go Will Howard, Craig Krenzel, and Cardale Jones. And I can't get out of my mind that Cardale Jones in that season, he wasn't good enough to start the year as the starter where Braxton Miller was cold. And then the very next year, he didn't win the job. He may have been the starting quarterback the first game of the year. He couldn't sustain that. And when he was playing, he wasn't that hot. Wasn't that consistent. Ultimately, did go to the NFL for a little bit, and then now he's in Columbus, Ohio, doing his thing, living life right now, celebrating like all of us, Ohio State's national championship win. But that's insane. In the BCS or CFP era, he's the best quarterback to win a national championship at Ohio State. You're one of two quarterbacks to lead your team to a national championship win in the first year you transfer to a new school. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about all the things Will Howard has done to solidify himself with legendary status after Ohio State's national championship win. We're up out of here, y'all, on a Thursday. You can follow me on X at jsteven07. Send every email to jsteven317 at gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes on a Thursday. We'll see you next time.